The moon hung low, casting eerie shadows across the suburban street. Inside a modest, two-story house, a large dog named Max lay curled at the foot of his owner's bed. The night was still, almost too quiet, as if the world held its breath in anticipation. "Good night," Max whispered Sarah, his owner, patting his head gently. Max's tail thumped against the wooden floor in response, but as the clock struck midnight, a chilling wind swept through the house, extinguishing the warmth of the room. Max lifted his head, ears perked, sensing something amiss. His eyes, usually a warm brown, began to shimmer with an unnatural glow. A faint, sinister laugh echoed through the halls. "Who's there?" Sarah called out, sitting up in bed, her voice trembling. From the corner of the room, a dark figure emerged, cloaked in shadows. "I am the genie of forgotten nightmares," it hissed, eyes gleaming with malice. "And tonight I claim this home," Max growled, his fur bristling, but his growl soon turned into a whimper as the genie raised a bony hand. "Your loyal dog will be my instrument of terror," the genie declared, a twisted smile spreading across its face. Max's eyes turned blood red, a deep, violent hue that pulsed with malevolence. He snarled, baring his teeth, and lunged at Sarah. "Max!" No, Sarah screamed, scrambling off the bed. She ran through the darkened hallway, the shadows closing in around her. Max's paws pounded against the floor, the sound echoing like a drumbeat of impending doom. In the kitchen, Sarah grabbed a knife, her hands shaking. "Stay back," she shouted, her voice breaking. But Max was relentless, driven by an unseen force. He knocked the knife from her hand, his eyes locking onto hers with a terrifying intensity. "Why, Max? Why are you doing this?" Sarah cried, backing into a corner. The genie's laugh filled the room again, cold and cruel. "He is mine now, human. Your love and loyalty mean nothing in the face of my power." Max lunged again, and Sarah, desperate, grabbed a chair to defend herself. But as she swung it, the chair splintered against Max's powerful frame. He was unstoppable, a beast driven by a dark force beyond her comprehension. Suddenly, a blinding light filled the room, and a voice boomed enough the genie recoiled, hissing in fury. A figure bathed in light stepped forward, its presence radiating warmth and hope. "I am the guardian of the lost," the figure said, its voice soothing yet commanding. "This house is under my protection." Max halted, trembling, as the red glow in his eyes flickered. The genie snarled, "You cannot interfere." "I already have," the guardian replied, raising a hand. A wave of light surged forward, engulfing the genie. It screamed, a sound of pure hatred and despair, before dissipating into nothingness. Max collapsed, his eyes returning to their normal brown. He whined softly, looking up at Sarah with confusion and sorrow. "It's okay," Max, Sarah whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You're safe now," the guardian nodded, a serene smile on its face. "For now the danger has passed. But be vigilant, for darkness always seeks a way in." Sarah hugged Max tightly, her heart pounding. "Thank you," she said to the guardian, her voice filled with gratitude. The guardian faded away, leaving a lingering sense of peace in the room. But as the night wore on, shadows still danced at the edges of the light, whispering of untold horrors yet to come. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the windows, casting a warm glow across the room. Sarah stirred, feeling the weight of the previous night's events pressing on her. She glanced at Max, who lay at her feet, his eyes now filled with a mixture of confusion and remorse. "Morning," Max, Sarah whispered, reaching out to stroke his fur. He licked her hand gently, his tail wagging ever so slightly. "We need to figure out what happened last night." The memory of the genie's dark presence sent a shiver down her spine, Determined to protect her home and her beloved dog, Sarah decided to seek help. She recalled an old friend, Professor Elaine Thompson, an expert in the supernatural. If anyone could shed light on their terrifying encounter, it would be her. After a quick breakfast, Sarah dialed Elaine's number. The phone rang twice before a familiar voice answered. Elaine Thompson speaking. "Elaine, it's Sarah," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I need your help. Something ... something awful happened last night, Sarah. It's been ages." "What's going on?" Elaine's tone shifted from cheerful to concerned. Sarah quickly recounted the events, describing the genie's appearance, Max's transformation, and the intervention of the guardian. Elaine listened intently, her silence filled with understanding. "Sarah, this sounds serious. I need to come over. I'll bring some tools and books that might help us understand what you're dealing with. Can you hold on until I get there?" "Yes, of course." "Please hurry," Sarah replied, relief flooding her voice. An hour later, Elaine arrived, a large bag slung over her shoulder. Her eyes were sharp, her demeanor focused. "Let's get to work," she said, stepping inside. Elaine spread out an array of ancient texts, crystals, and talismans on the kitchen table. Max sniffed at the items curiously, his tail wagging. "Good boy, Max," Elaine murmured, patting his head. "We're going to figure this out together." She opened a thick, leather-bound book, its pages yellowed with age. "This is a compendium of ancient spirits and entities. Let's see if we can find any mention of this genie you described hours past." As they pored over the book, the house filled with a faint scent of incense. Finally, Elaine paused, her finger tracing a passage. Here it is: "The Jinn of Shadows, an entity known for possessing animals and using them as instruments of terror." "That's it," Sarah said, her eyes wide. "That's what attacked us," Elaine nodded, her expression grave. "The good news is that the Guardian's intervention likely weakened it. But the bad news is that these entities often leave a mark." A way to return. Sarah's heart sank. "What can we do to stop it?" Elaine placed a hand on Sarah's shoulder. "We need to perform a cleansing ritual to rid your home of any residual dark energy. It's complex, but with your help and Max's presence, I believe we can do it." They gathered in the living room, Elaine arranging the crystals and talismans in a precise pattern. She lit candles and began to chant softly, the words foreign yet comforting. Max sat by Sarah's side, his eyes alert and focused. As the ritual progressed, a cold wind swept through the room. The shadows seemed to writhe and twist, fighting against the light. "Stay strong," Elaine urged, her voice rising above the chanting. Max growled, his fur bristling, but he stood his ground. Sarah clutched his collar, feeling a strange warmth spread from her hand. The light from the candles grew brighter, enveloping them in a protective glow. With a final, powerful chant, Elaine raised her hands. The shadows shrieked, and then, as a switch had been flipped, vanished entirely. The room fell silent, the air warm and still. "It's done," Elaine said, her voice weary but triumphant. "For now, your home is safe." Sarah hugged Max tightly, her heart pounding with relief. "Thank you, Elaine. I don't know what we would have done without you." Elaine smiled, though her eyes held a trace of worry. "Remember, Sarah, the darkness always seeks a way back. Be vigilant, and if you ever need help, you know where to find me." As the sun set, casting long shadows across the room, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that their battle was far from over. The night held many secrets, and somewhere in the depths of those shadows, the Jinn of Shadows waited, biding its time. The following weeks passed uneventfully, but Sarah couldn't shake the feeling of unease that lingered. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the leaves outside, set her nerves on edge. Max seemed more alert as well, his ears constantly twitching at the slightest sound. One evening, as Sarah prepared dinner, she noticed Max staring intently at a corner of the room. "What is it, boy?" she asked, but Max only growled softly, his gaze fixed. Suddenly the temperature dropped, and a familiar, chilling wind swept through the house. Sarah's heart raced as she saw a shadowy figure begin to form in the corner. "No," she whispered. Not again. The genie materialized, its eyes burning with malice. "Did you think it would be that easy to get rid of me?" it hissed, its voice like nails on a chalkboard. Sarah grabbed the nearest object, a wooden spoon, and held it defensively. "Stay away from us," the genie laughed, a cold, cruel sound. "You cannot protect your precious dog forever. I will return again and again until I get what I want," Max growled, stepping between Sarah and the genie. His eyes flashed with determination, and for a moment, Sarah thought she saw a flicker of red in them again. "No," she cried, placing a hand on Max's back. "I won't let you take him," the genie advanced, its form shifting and twisting. "You are powerless against me," it sneered. Suddenly, a bright light filled the room, and the guardian reappeared, her presence strong and comforting. "You will not harm them," she declared, her voice resonating with authority. The genie recoiled, hissing in fury. "This isn't over," it spat before dissipating into the shadows once more. The guardian turned to Sarah and Max, her expression serious. "The genie is persistent. It seeks to break your bond and claim Max as its own." "What can we do?" Sarah asked, desperation in her voice. "The bond between you and Max is your greatest strength," the guardian explained. "You must strengthen it. Spend time together, reinforce your trust and loyalty. The genie feeds on fear and discord. Deny it that power." Sarah nodded, determination replacing her fear. "We'll do whatever it takes." Over the next few days, Sarah and Max spent every moment together. They went on long walks, played in the yard, and Sarah even started teaching Max new tricks. The bond between them grew stronger with each passing day, a tangible sense of unity and love. One night, as they sat by the fireplace, Sarah heard a faint whispering. She looked around but saw nothing. "Do you hear that, Max?" she asked. Max perked up, his ears twitching, but he didn't growl. Instead, he looked at Sarah and wagged his tail. The whispering grew louder, forming words. "Sarah." Max, the voices were faint but insistent. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. "Who's there?" she called out. From the shadows, a figure emerged, but it was not the genie. It was a small, ethereal child with large, sorrowful eyes. "Help us," the child whispered. "The genie has us trapped." Sarah's heart ached for the child. "How can we help you?" The child pointed to a worn, ancient book that Elaine had left behind. "The answer lies within." Sarah grabbed the book and flipped through its pages, her eyes scanning for anything that might help. Finally, she found a passage about freeing trapped spirits. "We need to perform another ritual," she told Max, who barked in agreement. They gathered the necessary items and began the ritual. As they chanted, the air grew colder and the shadows deepened. The genie's voice echoed through the room, filled with anger and desperation. "You cannot defeat me." But Sarah and Max continued, their voices strong and unwavering. The light from the candles grew brighter, pushing back the darkness. The child's figure glowed, becoming more solid. With a final, powerful chant, the room was filled with blinding light. The genie screamed, its form disintegrating into nothingness. The child smiled, their form becoming more tangible, and whispered, "Thank you." As the light faded, Sarah and Max found themselves alone in the room, the air warm and still. The book lay open, its pages blank, as if the knowledge had been used up in the ritual. Sarah hugged Max tightly. "We did it, boy. We helped them." Max licked her face, his tail wagging furiously. For the first time in weeks, The house felt safe, the lingering shadows devoid of menace. But Sarah knew their journey wasn't over. The world was full of hidden dangers, and the bond between her and Max would be tested again. Together they would face whatever came next, their hearts united in courage and love.